Hey, what's up guys? My name is Anchor and welcome back to my channel. Sorry I had to take a little bit of a hiatus. I unfortunately had a terminal illness diagnosis, so it's always been my dream to open up my own YouTube channel and help educate you around the world on some of the tips and tricks I use for wedding photography, as well as gear reviews and tips and tricks. So here I am, still continuing to do what I love to do. And hopefully you like it enough that you'll give me a thumbs up and you'll subscribe to my channel. So thank you very much in advance. Now let's get right to it. This episode is about off-camera flash. A lot of the time people are overwhelmed with how to get into off-camera flash. And so a lot of photographers, including myself for many decades, stuck to what was known as natural light photography or available light photography. Sometimes they would use on-camera flash, bounce it off ceilings or whatnot, but for the most part, available light photography or natural light photography really relied upon just what it sounds like, any light that was available. Now, when you want to take your images to the next level, when you want to create those really dramatic, emotional photos, I think, and I personally believe, you need to take it to off-camera flash. And personally, I've seen a huge change in the way my photography and my photo come out. So without further ado, I'm going to give you a couple of quick tricks on how to get into off-camera flash photography without getting into the nitty-gritty details that are going to confuse you. I've gone through a lot of YouTube videos to really nail this and understand what off-camera flash photography is. So here I'm going to attempt to do that for you in a little bit of a nutshell. So let's start off with the basics. Number one, you need to understand the exposure triangle of photography. Now what this refers to is your exposure. You're talking about your shutter speed, your aperture, as well as your ISO. And you really have to understand how the exposure of your image is impacted by these three things. Because when you're in off-camera flash mode, you not only have to understand how these work together to create an image for you, but you're actually going to be shooting in manual mode only. And so what that means is manual exposure for no automatic ISO. The shutter speed is going to be set by you, and the aperture is going to be set by you. Now, more details about that later, but you absolutely must understand the exposure triangle of photography and how it impacts your exposure. I'm not going to get into it in this video. I might create another video for you, but there's plenty of tutorials online that'll help you to understand this. Number two, what you need to do is have the equipment ready to start your off-camera flash photography. Now, at the absolute basic, you need an off-camera flash. What I personally use is the Godox series of lights. I like to use two 80-200 Pros. One of them is for my key light, and one of them is for my rim light. Again, you can look up those terminology online for more information, but basically rim light is any light that you would highlight the hair with or behind the subject, whereas key light illuminates them from the side or the front 45 degrees to really illuminate the front side. Now, I don't just use 80-200 Pros. I do have two of these, but for larger events or when I want to overpower the sun, I use an Godox 80-400 Pro. I absolutely have no idea how this edit's going to turn out because I keep turning around to put my gear back on the table. So here goes nothing. Now what you'll also need is triggers to transmit the signal between your camera and your off-camera flash. What I like to use is the Godox series called the X Pro S for my Sony. And this is what they look like. Fairly small, fairly compact with a beautiful LCD on them. So let's get back to the video. So now you understand how your ISO, your aperture, and your shutter speed impact your exposure, called the exposure triangle. You also understand that on your camera, you need a trigger as well as an off-camera flash to be able to wirelessly transmit the signal to set off your flash to go when you need it. Now, I referred to a key light and a rim light. You don't necessarily have to have two flashes and two triggers. I have this because at all weddings, I always shoot with two cameras. More about that in another tips and tricks video about how to become a wedding photographer. Now, you can operate off-camera flash with one trigger, one camera, and one off-camera flash. So feel free to experiment about what's right for you. Now, the next thing you need to do, and this is the most critical piece, is actually going out there, practicing and shooting. Now, when you want to take images like this, and you want to create images like this, and you have natural light photography or available light photography, and then you have off-camera light photography, you really need to understand how you're going to get there. Now, it's 3 easy steps. And what I like to call 3 easy steps is, first of all, understand your exposure. You've got the gear, you've got the practice, you've got the knowledge. Go out there, shoot, and practice. Now, what this means to understand your exposure, what you first want to do is you want to take a photo and understand your scenery. So have your couple stand in the middle and really look at the background. How do you want your background to look? Feel free to go ahead and take an available light or natural light photo to see how that turns out. You'll notice that if you want your couple to be lit well and exposed properly so you can see them, you're going to blow out the skies or the background, and you're not going to be able to see the detail that you want to see. Now, if you lower your exposure to get the background in the sky exactly how you want it to look, dreamy or evoke emotion, dramatic, whatever the case may be, you're going to notice that your couple now is a lot darker, because you can't have your couple and your details in the background at the same exposure. Now, this is called exposing for your ambient light or exposing for your atmosphere. We've used both of these terms on the internet before, so you might hear both of them, but that's what it means. You have to expose for how you want the background to look. Now, how do you do that? Turn your flash off. Step 2 means turn your flash off, make sure your triggers are turned off and you're only shooting in manual mode, and go ahead and take a picture of your background or your sky exactly how you would want to see it. Now, this is where understanding the exposure triangle is going to help you, because you're going to use a combination of your ISO, your aperture speed, your shutter speed, as well as your aperture to control what you see in the background. Oftentimes, I have to increase my aperture to about 7.1 or maybe 9 to make that background, get those skies really detailed, get the field in the background really detailed and dark enough so that I can capture the detail that I want. Sometimes I'll also need to adjust my shutter speed. I'll have to increase my shutter speed to perhaps keep my aperture a little bit lower. You got to play around with your settings, but I like to always keep my ISO at about 50 if my camera allows for it, or about 100. I always choose the lowest ISO setting so I get the least amount of noise, and then I play with my aperture and my shutter speed to get the background look that I want. Using those two, the shutter speed and the aperture, I will get the background just the way I want it, and I will take an exposure. Now, you're going to see with that exposure, the background is exactly how you want it, but the couple is very dark. That's okay. That's exactly how we want it, because now we have actually exposed for the background the way that we want it. That is the background we want. That is the detail we want and how we want the background to look. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add flash to the couple to make sure that they're properly lit. And that is step 2 going into step 3. Turn on your trigger, turn on your wireless flash, and illuminate the couple using different power levels or exposures of your flash. Now, whether you're using a rim light and a key light or just a key light and you're using the rim light as the sun to light up the back, what you want to do is you're keeping that background the same, but now you're playing with the light to adjust how powerful you want the light to be on the couple. Play with the strength of your flash to see how it illuminates the couple. And when you're happy with how they are illuminated or exposed while keeping your background the same, you've got your perfect exposure with off-camera flash. Now what you want to do is then take that image into your studio, take it into Lightroom and Photoshop, and edit that bad boy. What you want to do is, if you had an assistant holding the flash or if you had it on a stand, you want to Photoshop that out, either using the copy tool and copy other pieces of the background or the image over top of that stand or the person, or use the content aware fill to highlight that section and then allow Photoshop to automatically fill in that section of the image with another part of the image that looks very similar. And so as you can see in the examples that I've shown you, we had an assistant in the back, we had a light on a light stand, but using these tools in Photoshop, we were easily able to take them out. Now, if the Photoshop is the last step, what you want to do first is import it into Lightroom and make your adjustments in Lightroom. Apply any filters that you want to use, apply any sharpening, vibrancy, play with your highlights, your shadows, whatever the case may be. Edit your image exactly how you want it before you take your final image into Photoshop to take out the elements of the image that you don't want to see, such as the flash on the stand or an assistant holding your flash. So those are the 3 really easy steps to off-camera flash once you have the equipment ready. You need to make sure that you understand what the manual exposure looks like, set up your scene, and then you want to go into step 2 and expose for the ambient light, which means look at the image, see how you want the background, and expose for that and take your shot with the couple in the dark, of course. Then use your flash and your equipment to illuminate the couple or expose them. And then going into step 3, make all the adjustments you need to into Lightroom and Photoshop to produce your final image. And that is how we went from this to this. I really hope this video has helped you. If it has, I'd appreciate you subscribing so I can bring you more videos like this. I really love teaching people what I know about photography and weddings, so I'm happy to do that. Just give me a like, give me a subscribe. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the comments below. I know I tend to ramble a lot, sometimes using the wrong terminology, but believe me, it would be my honor to help you. So feel free, if you need any clarification, put it in the comments below and I will do my absolute best to respond. Until next time, practice these steps, go out and shoot, and don't forget that you won't get better unless you practice and keep shooting. So good luck, and we'll see you next time.